Ready? All right, we'll get started with the pre-meeting. Mr. City Manager will not be with us tonight, so Mr. Henley is acting City Manager this evening. And we'll start off with recommendations from the Federal Transit Authority 2011 Triennial Review. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Tonight we have Liz Becker here who will talk about the Federal Transit Authority Triennial Review. You'll hear from her that this is a review conducted by the FTA, which is pretty darn thorough every 3 years. And with that, if I could turn it over to Ms. Becker.
Ms. Becker.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, since we have gotten into the transportation business, I had wanted to give you an update on this review that, as Mr. Henley said, is conducted every 3 years by the Federal Transit Administration. It is a very thorough review, as he indicated. We're looking at how we as an organization manage federal grant program and look at our processes for operating transit. We had our last triennial review in 2017. It was the week of the eclipse, and we had they come into town typically, a review team with the FTA, along with what they contract out a reviewer. And so that firm comes in and they are on site for about 3 days. They look physically at our operations, they look at our fleet, they look at all of our records. So 2017 meant that we should have had a triennial in 2020. But with our infamous COVID, that was postponed, and we had rescheduled for earlier this year. As it was with various outbreaks, the team up from Denver chose not to come, and we did what we called a virtual triennial in the month of May. We actually did it a week after we started operations over at the transit system. So we had prepared for months, sending reports back and forth, doing a lot of uploads. And so what they did for the 3 days with us were to set up Zoom calls, and members of the city team would get onto these calls and talk about civil rights processes. We'd talk about ADA. Our fleet team got on and talked about the condition of our transit fleet, all 23 vehicles. We had updates from our financial services director. Mr. Henley participated with all the legal concerns as far as anything with contracts. So we did the Zoom calls, and we then proceeded to wait for them to put together this report. The triennial report comes out with very solid recommendations for improving operations. They're called deficiencies, but they refer to them for corrective action. And over the last several years, every 3 years, we have steadily improved on the number of deficiencies that Casper has had. I remember back in 2011, for instance, we had 17. 3 years ago, we had 7. This time around, from the May triennial, we had 5, and I wanted to share with you what the deficiency areas were, and we are then given a certain amount of time to put together corrective actions. The very first one dealt with financial management and capacity. FTA was pleased with the plan that we put together to take over the transit operations. They were pleased with the financial oversight, and they basically indicated it would have been a finding had we not taken over operations. And so moving forward, they are pleased with the direction that our financial services team is taking with us, with Ms. Johnson and her team, and really having the oversight that we can continue to look at our financial review of records. Number 2, dealt with technical capacity and project management. FTA wants to make certain that our financial, our legal, and our operational steps are followed, and we have the capacity to do so. They have recommended that we do employ and hire a transit manager into this organizational structure for transit operation. That individual would be on site over on 4th Street in the office. They would have, again, the 2 supervisors that then oversee the drivers as well as dispatchers in the office team. We had presented that during the meetings with the FTA, and so they agreed. And so as a corrective action, they do want us to, in fact, hire a transit manager that would report into me in community development. That position would be funded through our regular FTA federal grant. and so it would not come out of the general fund. Our third area that we needed to work on is procurement. We have spent a lot of time on how we do our purchasing contracts, but what FTA has asked us to do is to make certain, depending on what we're purchasing, and I will talk a little bit about that, whether we're purchasing buses, whether we're purchasing wraps for buses, whether we're purchasing COVID supplies, we have to have certain federal clauses in those purchasing agreements. And as such, there are 20. They may deal with lobbying that we have to be careful about with procurement. They may deal with the fact that we need to make certain anybody we go into a contract with is not subject to disbarment. We also are looking at emphasizing to buy America whenever possible. So these clauses are your typical federal clauses. They just want to make sure that we, the city of Casper, incorporate them into all of our contracts. And again, that's part of the partnership with our legal team. And so we're in sync there. Fourth and fifth, as far as the areas that they'd like us to improve upon. Fourth was dealing with Title VI issues, so making certain that we are not discriminating in offering transit services based on race and religion and everything governed under Title VI. Same with the fifth, which is that we are not discriminating against ADA. So we're making certain that all of our services that we provide for the American with Disabilities Act, that we are providing services of equal or better acceptance to our riders that might have disabilities. With the fact of you all establishing our Council on Disabilities, we have really enjoyed feedback from them really over the last several months, even beginning as far back in April at the monthly meetings, listening to issues that they bring forward. But what FTA is wanting us to do in-house is to make certain that we have good record keeping of any complaints that might be lodged against the city for any form of discrimination, whether it's Title VI or anything with ADA. We have had those processes in place in the past with the previous operator. They just want to make certain that we are transitioning them correctly with the city and continuing to give them more complete reports going forward. So that is, in a summary, what the Triennial has reviewed for us. I felt that we are poised in excellent position with the operations, and the Triennial FTA team has been very forthright in working with us as we continue to follow up on what we have put together for corrective actions and hit the timelines. So that's what I wanted to share this evening with you. I have one other thing, but I wanted to answer your questions first.
Councilman Nell.
How many, if any, of the 5 recommendations were part of the 7 3 years ago or part of the 17 6 years ago?
Mr. Mayor, I can answer that. We, 3 years ago, were challenged to improve our financial management oversight. At the time, this entire organization was in transition in our financial services department. And I think if some of you were on council at the time, we were down in staff. When they came in for the eclipse, we had, I think, probably 2 employees in that area. And what FTA wants to make certain is that we've got great oversight, not only from the director level, but having CPAs on staff too, and we were able to meet that. So all they said this time is you have it. Yes, you've made that adjustment, just continue forward with that. So that was a repeat. And another repeat was to, again, procurement has come up every year, it seems like. So that was a repeat, but what's happened now is it's just to get the federal clauses. We are going out and getting correct estimates. We are looking at making certain that we encourage women-owned businesses. So we've made so much progress in procurement than what we had seen back in 2011. But one of the comments has been is to keep current with the federal clauses, which change frequently depending on what the administration is thinking in DC. And finally, the other one is, again, a continuation of continually improving our service with the ADA component, making certain that we are cognizant of meeting their needs. And if we need to do route deviation to accommodate an individual with a disability, that we have got that ability in our scheduling system, our dispatch system, that we can do route deviations when necessary to serve customers with disabilities.
Councilmember Pollock.
Thank you. I have a question about, you've answered it maybe a little bit on the ADA side. For deficiencies 4 and 5, are they, were they citing specific issues that they could see in our transit system as it stands, or are they more wanting us to put more processes into place to ensure issues do not arise in the future?
Your Honor, council member, excellent question. There were not the issues they would like us to improve upon our forms that we fill out. So case in point, we have a complaint come in that a driver did not assist a rider that had a disability, did not hop out, come around, and open the door correctly. We have to have processes in place to interview the citizen. We interview the driver. We interview who took the call of the complaint. We put that into a complete record system so that if FTA were ever to say, hey, I want to see your ADA compliance notebook, we have that, it's up to date. Not only in paper form, because the feds love everything in paper, but also scanned into our system so we have the electronic record of it. And we have had that done, but they want us to improve upon that and just have better record keeping with it and not have to dig through a bunch of files for that. Unfortunately, we've not had many of the complaints. So we've got a skilled team of drivers, but one of the other components is that they want to make sure they have continuing education. And whether that's operating the newest form of a wheelchair and being able to get it into the lift correctly. But, you know, this is all stuff we've had to quickly learn from, but fortunately our drivers have helped keep those of us who were not skilled in transit informed on a lot of that. But there are FTA continuing ed classes to help us with everything that's going on there. Plus, our local disability council has been wonderful. And Council Member Pacheco serves on that.
Okay, any other questions from anybody? Did you have something else? Okay.
Krista, take it away. As of today, drum roll, look at your screens. We have had our first 2 wrapped. The contractor is planning on 2 a day. And again, you're looking right now at the assist for our Dial-A-Ride door-to-door service with that logo, assist. So you're looking at beautifully wrapped. And then next is the link, which is our fixed route. And again, more of the blue hood on that one, and then the green logo with the white along the side. We also have, it's hard to see in this one, you could see it on the other one a little bit better, but we have our motto, which is passengers are our passion and our purpose. So that's been new. The backs are going to be decaled with the standard handicap logo, as well as the penny, that these are partially funded with 1-cent funds. So those are the last elements that have to be applied, as well as, of course, the fleet number. In case someone needs to report on one of the fleet vehicles, they've got the number on the back. So for all 9 of you who have seen the duct tape since May 7th, it is getting removed from the buses, and we've got these wraps that are showing up. So pretty exciting. And I have to say, when I drove past the transit office today to see them sitting in the yard, we wanted to roll it out to you all first before they rolled out onto the street. So tomorrow they will begin to hit the street. So pretty exciting as far as our transit operation. So you saw it first.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to curb walks, sidewalks, curbs, and gutters. Mr. Henley.
Thank you, Mayor Council. This is a topic that was requested by you, and basically, this is another information-only topic that will come up tonight, and we have Mr. Beamer here with us to explain and hopefully answer the questions and the information that you wanted to derive. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beamer?
Mayor, Council, I think there's some confusion about the responsibility for maintenance and replacement of curb and gutter and sidewalks and curb walk, and it's quite clearly stated in the Muni Code that the vast majority of that lies with the adjacent property owner. The city is responsible for the radii, whether you see the ADA ramps, as well as the alley approaches, but the rest of it is the responsibility of the adjacent property owner. You will also see there's a very strict guideline by which we can ask the adjacent property owner to replace or repair deficient curb walk, curb and gutter, or sidewalks. And if they don't do it, we can certainly do it in-house and assess them if it's not done within 4 months. So I think, Councilman Cathy, you were asked to bring this as a topic for discussion. That's a very quick rundown on the responsibility with curb and gutter and sidewalk and curb walk, as the case might be, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Cathy?
I appreciate what was brought forward because I was under the impression, based on some conversations when we were talking about the parkways and things, that when it was a detached sidewalk, that from the top of the curb to the top of the curb was the city's responsibility. So that curb and gutter on detached sidewalks was the responsibility of the city, but yet the sidewalk itself was the responsibility of the property owner. But it sounds like, based on what was printed here, that basically even the curb and gutter in those situations are the responsibility of the property owner.
Mayor, Councilman, that's absolutely correct.
Okay, because I knew when we were discussing the parkways, we were concerned about damage to the curbs by people driving across them, which in essence what you're saying is that's a no harm, no foul to us. If they're damaged, we force the property owner to fix them and we go on. So that was kind of a moot point in that discussion then.
Mayor, Council, we're not heavy-handed in these letters sending out to these property owners, hey, it's deficient, you need to replace it. We get concerned when there's obviously trip hazards, where it's really impacting stormwater runoff, but for the most part, if it's just cracked or it's just deteriorated a little bit, unless there's a complaint, we don't typically enforce.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilman Gamero.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Beamer, for being here. So I guess the way I'm interpreting it, I mean, I can think of several different areas in town where the sidewalks are, whether it's tree roots or just, movement in the ground or whatever, the sidewalks have become disjointed. You know, if you're, I like to longboard from time to time, and so I know there's a lot of sidewalks that I'll end up on my face if I try longboarding down the sidewalk. It's my understanding that the sidewalk in front of people's houses, they're responsible for replacing it if it gets to that condition. And then I have a follow-up if...
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman, that is correct. I can tell you the neighborhood I live in. The house was built in 1920, and the sidewalks, and for the most part, the gutters and curbs are original to that. Mm-hmm. My sidewalk is deficient according to this code.
So I guess a follow-up then would be, how do we handle, so say, I mean, those sidewalks that I'm thinking of in my mind didn't occur overnight, and so what would happen if a long-term homeowner, the sidewalk's been like that forever, they sell their house, a new homeowner comes in, and that just so happens to be immediately when a complaint's filed, despite the fact that they've been at that home for a very little time, they're still responsible to replace that sidewalk?
Mayor, Councilman, that's correct.
One more follow-up, because again, everyone knows I love questions. Can you give me an average, one of those squares of sidewalk, what would that cost to replace?
Mayor, Councilman, I would suggest that an average cost is about $50 a foot. So each square is probably 5 feet. So
$500 a square? To my 250? Sorry, long day. Okay. All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions at this time.
Mr. Mayor? Go ahead. I've already had one. Go ahead.
Councilmember Pollock.
So I think you spoke briefly about the alley entrances and the sidewalk that, you've got the ramp into the alley, and then you've got typically a sidewalk before you get into the actual alley space. Is that city maintained, that bit of sidewalk there, or is that shared between adjacent property owners who are up against the alley?
Mayor, Councilmember, we consider that the entire alley approach, so that would be the city's responsibility.
Thank you.
Councilman Kathy.
A can of worms now. In the areas that Councilman Gamroth was talking about, where the trees have grown up and expanded their girth and have raised up the sidewalks, if I were to come in now and tear out those two pieces of sidewalk, and what am I supposed to do with that tree that I can't touch without city authority to touch the tree? Am I supposed to start regrading that whole thing to now put a big whoop-de-doo in the sidewalk, or?
Mayor, Councilman, you do like to open up a can of worms.
Yeah, there's.
You would have to get an arborist, obviously, to take care of the tree, and there are provisions in the code to limit the slope of the sidewalk, so it would be a challenging situation.
Just curious, just, like I said, just.
Any other questions?
Can of worms? No.
Councilman Gamroth.
Thank you. I guess where it kind of came as a surprise to me, honestly. I know people were responsible for shoveling and stuff, but I guess I didn't know they were aware for totally replacing the sidewalk if it got deficient. And so, if we're in a place, I imagine we don't get those complaints written very, you said we don't often enforce it. I imagine that's because there's not very many complaints. And so I'm just thinking long-term at, what condition do the sidewalks have to be in where, either we're just writing, people are submitting complaints and we're, code enforcers are walking up and down the street all the time, or we just get to a point where our sidewalks are all just really bad. I just don't, any input.
Councilman,
Thanks.
we probably issue 1 to 2 letters a year, maybe, complaint-based. A lot of the property owners will take care of the sidewalks themselves when it becomes so deficient to be a real nuisance. But there are still plenty of sidewalks and curb and gutters and curb walk in this community that do not meet the current code.
Councilwoman Ingebretson.
And I don't know if you know this or not, but I hope you do. So what is the advantage for the city to just maintain ownership of the parkway versus just turning it over to the owner? Because I do know that a lot of citizens who've got the parkway in front of their house is upset because it's city-owned property, but they're expected to maintain it. Wouldn't it be simpler to just have the citizens maintain and own the whole thing?
Mayor, Councilwoman, if I'm understanding, you're not talking about curb and gutter or sidewalks. You're simply talking about the
to the curb
parkway.
and gutter, the whole thing, so from their house to the street, because basically you're saying it's a homeowner's responsibility to maintain all of that from their front door to the street.
Mayor, Councilwoman, the obvious response is cost. We have about 300 centerline miles of roadway. I'm not quite sure what percentage of that has a parkway boulevard associated with it, but to irrigate and landscape and maintain that would be cost prohibitive, in my opinion.
No, so the homeowners are already maintaining it, but the city owns it.
It's within the city right away. That's correct.
So the question is what is the benefit for the city to maintain ownership of that versus just turning it over to the homeowners?
Mayor, Councilwoman, the city's right-of-way generally extends from the back of sidewalk to the back of sidewalk. So if, let's say 20 years from now, 50 years from now, we need to expand the city street network, we could incorporate that boulevard. I'm not suggesting we do that, so I don't want anybody to come unglued, but to to construct another traffic lane, for example, or a turning lane. So,
Nice can of worms, Andrew.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Henley, on agenda review, do we have anything?
Thank you. Just two quick items tonight, Mayor, Council. One is the Halloween. Last year, because of COVID, it did not happen at City Hall. This year, we believe it's appropriate to go forward with that. It'll be voluntary for the employees. We're going to basically make sure that there's no physical contact. Candy will be dropped into each trick-or-treater's bag. They don't get to reach in for their own candy and the like. Hand sanitizer, of course, will be available. And people will be wearing masks, probably double mask, maybe some scary ones. And so that's kind of what we're anticipating for this year's Halloween. We've been getting some questions about that, so that's going to be our strategy this year. With respect to other agenda items, remind you that next week is a work session, and at the conclusion of the work session, perhaps a little later than the conclusion, we have the ribbon cutting down at the Goodstein parking lot, which would be very nice. It seems like that the engineering department and Public Works did a very nice job in reconstructing that, and hopefully you'll enjoy that, and the people of the city will enjoy that. And then the other item next week is that we had on October the 19th, the one-way to two-way conversion study discussion that was going to take place. That will now be moved, and I think appropriately, and the city manager thinks appropriately, to the work session, which will occur on the 12th, which will be next week. So be looking forward to that. The memo I see is being prepared and should be out to you with the usual packet. And that's all we have for tonight. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I have one more item before we move into the meeting. I found out earlier, yesterday I guess it was, that the county commission was going to hear, they were going to have a discussion over Delta Airlines taking, or pulling out of Casper. So not being able to talk to anybody, any of you, ahead of time, I did send a letter today to the county commission and in support of keeping Delta Airlines here. I'm assuming everybody would like to do that, except for Sean. So anyways, I provided that letter to him today with the help of Mr. Henley, and we got that over to him in time. So just want to make you all aware of that.
Does that involve a monetary?
It's more of a letter of support today of we want to keep them here. And I believe, they heard it today, but was there more discussion later on, Mr. Henley, or do you know?
I'm not aware of any further discussion. So, but we did not have any monetary reference within the letter, just the support and the reasons why it would be appropriate to try to encourage Delta to stay here and encourage the county commissioners to do that if they could.
And if I can just kind of echo what you said earlier today in our discussions is, it's important that we stay on top of that and try and keep them here, because once we lose something like that, it's near impossible to get them to come back. And I think we've seen that even in airlines as Allegiant leaving here, and don't know that we'll ever see them come back. So that's purpose behind sending it. So, okay. We'll move into the meeting, but so before we begin this evening, I'd like to remind everyone to silence their cell phones at this time, and I now call the October 5th, 2021 regular council meeting to order. All members are present, so let's go ahead and cast our vote just to show that we're present. Everybody but Sean. Okay.
All members are present.
All right, thank you. Council meetings are also televised and can be viewed on cable channel 192. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the September 21st, 2021 regular council meeting, as will be published in the Casper Star Tribune on October 6, 2021.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Pacheco, second by Councilman Johnson. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With council members Kathy and Pollock abstaining, motion passed.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the September 21st, 2021 executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Nell, second by Councilwoman Engebretson. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With council members Kathy and Pollock abstaining, motion passed.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the October 5th, 2021 bills and claims as audited by City Manager Napier.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, second by Councilman Johnson. Any abstention or nay votes? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Now is the time we invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak with the council to come forward. As stated on the first page of the agenda, we ask the following. Please state your name and address. Direct all questions or comments to the mayor and only the mayor. No personal attacks on staff or council will be tolerated. Council will not respond to personnel matters. These will be referred to our city manager. Questions posed by speakers may or may not be responded to by council members. Presentations will be limited to 5 minutes, and the duplication of speakers will not be allowed, nor will time extensions be permitted. Please note that public hearings and ordinances each have their own comment period, so please hold your comment on these items until we reach them. Is there anyone that would like to speak to council?
Good evening. Dennis Steensland, 533 South Washington. Just a happy meeting tonight, I hope, for everybody. Happy to see all 9 members here. That is a big concern of mine. Brought it up last time. Mr. Cathy brought it up prior to that. Last meeting, work meeting, was the most productive meeting that I have observed any council to have. Everybody participated. Everybody had an opinion. Everybody had reasons. It was just a productive meeting. I didn't agree with the final outcome, but it is what it is. And I've had a chance to talk to a couple city employees, and their feeling for not getting a shot is much stronger than a $25 incentive would be. One of the inputs was the only thing that'll get their interest is increased insurance rates. And this is a 2-person survey. So, and then maybe a 2-person survey from the public, from people. They're very adamant about not getting the shot, and I will never understand that. I'm in line to get my booster shot. So anyway, that's the positive part. The 1 cent specific purpose tax was brought up by Carter, and I tie that in with our current property tax assessments. Those have gone up substantially the last 3 years. But anyway, in my position and with the tax structure, the timing is poor, which can't be adjusted by city council. But I will not be able to support that just because of the tax issue. I do think the Midwest Edgerton pipeline is a viable thing that needs to be done. I don't understand Midwest Avenue. Seems like we've been working on that for 2 years. I drove through it last week. I don't know why it's not done. I don't know if it's money or whatever, but I'm not a big supporter in that. And between that and the tax structure, I just cannot support it. I'm not going to vote myself another tax after having to fight with the county over property taxes. So those were the only 2 that I actually come down here to talk about. But Andrew's presentation on the curb and gutter. That's always been a thorn under my hide. The berm is owned by the city. It's maintained by the property owner. If a tree goes bad on the berm, it's the property's owner to get that tree taken down. Tree work now is expensive. So I don't quite understand why they can dictate on the curb and gutter and the tree issue. I know that's the way it's going to be. It just doesn't seem like it's fair to the citizens. So, and then, as a parting shot, sometime later on, I would like an update on what's going on with Plains Furniture. That was an issue for me many years ago, and I see them making progress. I don't see any condos being built, and I don't see anything going on that's generating the city any money. I don't know if we're still paying to empty their garbage, but anyway, it seems like the whole plan as it was presented to the prior council has gone away. That or else it's years down the road. I think it's been 3 years since Plains Furniture issue came up. There's very little progress over there. I'm aware of the brewery. It looks like they've put a bigger footprint on that in the Plains Furniture area. So anyway, I'd just like to follow up on that at some point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Steensland, if I could, I'll answer on Plains. I don't know if you're aware, but that did switch ownership again. And right now I know they are focused on getting the brewery up and running. So that's where a majority of the work is going right now. As far as the condos, I don't know that they've started at this point, but I know that there's a plan in place and I've seen it, but nothing, no ground has been broken on that yet.
The condos are still in the mix?
Yes.
And they have not given the city council a time frame for their work?
Not that I'm aware of right now. They're, like I said, they're focused on the commercial end of it right now.
Okay. Is the city concerned at all about the fact that that's not generating as much money as the city was anticipating getting out of that?
Well, I'll answer that. Mr. Steensland, it takes time to build things. I mean, they're not going to just tell you, hey, we're going to have a brewery, and then tomorrow you're going to wake up and a brewery's going to be there. It's going to take time for them to get it built. So obviously the income's not coming here, but we can see what the potential is and we can see what's coming here. So I personally am not concerned about it. It's forward progress and it's moving forward, and I fully trust, personally myself, trust what's going on down there. So
I see. I think it's been 3 years, and that to me is a long time. And I do know it changed hands, but anyway, it's a long-term project. So thank you.
thank you. Councilwoman Engbrotson.
Mr. Steenland, I just want to make a comment. So you also have to account for the fact that we've been dealing with COVID for almost 2 years. So it's next to impossible to get building materials and costs and stuff. So it is actually delaying everything to be built out and then to try to get the materials. So you have to factor in some of that too.
Is there anyone else who would like to address council? All right, we'll move on to bright spots in our community. We would like to welcome members of the Casper Fire EMS team to the meeting tonight. Please come forward and tell us more about Fire Prevention Week.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for the time, appreciate it. I'm just going to give you a real quick brief overview. This week is Fire Prevention Week. In 1911, Fire Prevention Day was actually first established, and it was to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire. In 1922, they decided to expand it to Fire Prevention Week, and the National Fire Protection Agency has been observing it the week that October 9th falls in since 1922. This year's campaign for Fire Prevention Week is Learn the Sounds of Fire Safety, and that deals with smoke detectors, educating adults and children alike on the sounds of smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors.
Okay, any questions from anybody? Good timing. I do have a proclamation to read.
Okay. Do I need,
If you want, come on up.
whatever you want.
Come on up. Okay, a proclamation that says, whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and the city of Casper is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city. And whereas home fires pose the greatest risk to people and have killed more than 2,770 people in the United States in 2019, according to the National Fire Protection Association. And fire departments in the United States responded to 339,500 home fires. And whereas Casper Fire EMS first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education, as residents who are responsive to public education measures are better able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2021 Fire Prevention Week theme, Learn the Sounds of Fire Safety, effectively serves to remind us it is important to learn the different sounds of smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Therefore, I, Steve Friel, Mayor of the City of Casper, do hereby proclaim October 3rd through the 9th, 2021 as Fire Prevention Week, and I urge all the people of our community to learn the sounds of fire safety, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of our community's fire and emergency services. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Casper, Wyoming to be affixed this 5th day of October, 2021. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the transfer of retail liquor license number 21 from Modern Electric Company doing business as Bootlegger Liquor, located at 100 North Ash Street, to Wyoming Downs OTB 12 LLC, doing business as Wyoming Downs OTB 12, located at 1121 Wilkins Circle. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight we have 4 exhibits. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Tremmel to J. Carter Napier, dated September 20, 2021. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated September 27, 2021. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication, is published on the City of Casper website, dated September 20, 2021. And exhibit number 4, liquor license application, filed September 2, 2021. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Acting City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As you remember, Wyoming Downs LLC was one of those applicants for the bar and grill licenses that were up not too long ago. And it was your belief that they should seek out another license, and in fact they have. So upon your approval, if you do approve this, the Bootlegger Liquor establishment will no longer be in business. And once the closing documents between those two entities have come to pass and been endorsed and executed, Wyoming Downs OTB 12 LLC will become the liquor license number 21 operator here in the City of Casper. And with that, that's all I have.
Okay. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the transfer of retail liquor license number 21 to please approach the lectern.
I'm Chris Macca, live at 609 Morgan Avenue. I'm the manager at Wyoming Downs, and we do support this transfer.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for him? All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of? At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the transfer of retail liquor license number 21 to please approach the lectern. Okay, there being no others to speak for or against the transfer of retail liquor license number 21, I now declare the public hearing closed. The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize the transfer of retail liquor license number 21.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, second by Vice Mayor Pacheco. Any discussion? Vice Mayor Pacheco.
The only thing I was going to say is that I'm glad that we're seeing that this is going to be moved and then not parked, but it's going to be utilized. And so I'm always in favor of doing that instead of seeing a parked license. So we're able to get that out into the community. So anyway, just in favor of it, and I think it's a good move. And I'm glad the Downs were able to find a substitute for that. So good luck.
Councilman Nell.
I want to go on the record that we had voted with our last liquor license to not give that to you folks. And it was a business decision where we were trying to save the one license that we thought a restaurant license would have worked for you. I appreciate the ingenuity and the going out and figuring it out. So good on you, it all worked out. So.
Anyone else? Okay, any amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With Councilmember Pollock having recused herself and all those voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the, we'll wait for Councilmember Pollock. Getting ahead of myself. Yeah, I know. Put it. Maybe we should leave these for the end. Leave it for the end next time. Okay, please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance approving the Trails West Estates Number 6 subdivision agreement and the final plat of Trails West Estates Number 6.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, second by Councilman Nell. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. All right, any discussion? Councilman Gamero.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I was just curious if the city, I don't know what organization it would be or anything, but is there an organization within the city that studies impact of traffic on proposed development and stuff? The only reason I ask that is because I happen to live up in this neighborhood, and I know Trevette is really the only way for that entire neighborhood to get out, and it's a 2-lane road, and so if somebody needs to take a left morning rush hour when kids are dropping their kids off, it can back up that line for a while. And so I don't know how many tenants, it looks like, 30 plots or something like that. So I don't know how many people that would introduce to the community, but I just didn't know if we, if that's something on our radar, if that's something we routinely study when there's proposed developments or anything like that. So just looking for some input regarding that. Thanks.
Mr. Henley.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman, Mayor. In fact, this is something that the Planning and Zoning Commission does look at, and actually, of course, before that, the planner that we have in our city. And they do look not only at the site plan, but also how that site plan will affect traffic flow. So there is an analysis of that. Of course, sometimes people are happy with it, sometimes not. In looking at the roads, though, it does look like there will be an additional egress, ingress over and above Trevette Lane once the entire subdivision is built out. And so with that, maybe that would alleviate some of the concerns of which the neighbors would have up in that neck of the woods.
Councilman Gamero.
I think I do see the road that you're talking about. It looks like oh geez.
Whiskey Gap.
Yes, Whiskey Gap. That's exactly what it is. Thank you. So I wouldn't be worried so much as emptying that neighborhood. What my concern is that Trevitt Lane, as it connects to Robertson Road, it's really the only way. So this entire area of Paradise Valley west of Robertson Road, there's only really 3 roads to get out of there. It's Trevitt, Buckboard, and Harrington. Really. Village Drive. So really Village Drive, Buckboard, and Trevitt are the only 3 in and out points of this entire neighborhood. And then again, Robertson Road is just a single, road as well. And so that was really what my concern was. If you follow Trevitt all the way where it connects to Robertson Road, that T, that's where a lot of people end up getting hung up, especially, like I said, if somebody needs to take a left onto Robertson, they can back. I've seen 40 cars in a line right there just trying to get onto Robertson Road. And so, yeah, I didn't know if there had been any exploration of whether we needed a turning lane there or, a street light eventually. I don't know how far in advance we're planning for those things, but just wanted to make sure somebody who's better informed than me is doing their due diligence. Thanks.
Agreed.
Any other discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the, okay. Please record the vote.
With Mayor Friel and Councilmember Ingebretson abstaining and all others voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance approving the annexation and the annexation agreement for Tract 31, Dollar Number 3 subdivision and zoning said parcel M1 Limited Industrial.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gamrow, second by Councilman Johnson. Council now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes. No duplication of speakers will be allowed.
I'll be very brief. Sean Gustafson, ECS Engineers, 111 West 2nd. Really, I'm just here to answer any questions. If you have any questions of me, I think everything else has been spelled out pretty well. So,
anybody have any questions? Okay, thanks, Sean. Anyone else who would like to make a comment? Discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance approving a zone change of the former Willard School property, lots 1 through 12, block 97, Butler's Edition.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollak, second by Councilman Gamroth. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 13.03, Utility Billing and Collection of the Casper Municipal Code.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ingebretson, second by Councilman Johnson. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes. No duplication of speakers will be allowed. Discussion? Amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
Item 10A1, authorizing the continuation of the Downtown Development Authority mill levy. Item 10A2, release of a local assessment district lien. Item 10A3, committing surplus specific purpose tax revenue, if any, to street repair and construction projects. Item 10A4, a contract for court-appointed attorney services with Chapman, Valdez, and Lansing. Item 10A5, an agreement for the wastewater treatment plant digester cleaning project with Denali Water. Item 10A6, correcting a scrivener's error in a resolution for the 1% specific purpose excise tax. And item 10A7, amendment with ThyssenKrupp elevator for the freight elevator at the Ford Wyoming Center.
The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Johnson, second by Councilwoman Engebretson. Acting City Manager, would you like to make any comments on any of the items?
Just two, Your Honor. Thank you. The special election for the Downtown Development Authority is kind of interesting. It comes up every 4 years. It basically authorizes the property owners themselves to authorize a tax. So it's 16 mills. It could be up to 30 mills, but it's 16 mills for this group of property owners, with the exception of residential property in the downtown boundaries is explained. So it's kind of an interesting piece of legislation and mechanism. And so that doesn't happen very often, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention and say, kind of neat. The other one that I would point out would be that we do have a new public defender, essentially, for the municipal courts, and that's the law firm of Chapman and Valdez. The attorney who will actually handle that is the primary attorney is Mr. Shank, who's formerly with the district attorney's office, but just left their employ about, beginning of this year. And with that, unless there are other questions, I don't have any other comments. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Any abstention or nay votes? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the consent minute action titles.
Item 11A1, acknowledging receipt of financial disclosure information from Councilmember Quest and Financial Services Director Johnson. Item 11A2, rejecting bids for the SCBA replacement project.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda items just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, second by Councilman Gamroth. Any abstention or nay votes? Yeah. Please cast your vote. You can abstain on there. Yeah. And please record the vote.
With Councilmember Quest abstaining on her item and all those voting aye on all the other items, motion passed.
At this time, we ask council members to bring forward relevant concerns or items of interest. Councilman Nell.
I have quite a few, but I don't want to step on toes. So Ray, are you going to talk about the application process for council with disabilities?
You can if you want to, because I missed that meeting.
Okay.
So if you want to talk about it, go ahead.
Just to let the public know, the council with, tell me, Ray, the council.
CCPD, yeah. CCPD.
CCPD is accepting applications from the public. They're looking for a new member, and those names will go into a pool and be selected by the city council. So if that's an interest of yours, they meet once a month. The more people that get involved in things like this, the better. So went to Lieutenant Dundas's memorial yesterday, which was very sad for his family, but very well received by the community. There were a lot of people there, and it's wonderful to see that we live in a community that we support our police. And so thank all of you that attended. There are memorials set up, I believe, for the family if you're interested in helping them. I got an email, actually 3 of them, concerning the speeding on 12th and 13th Streets. As we all know, those are 2-lane thoroughfares. We do have electronic signs up there to remind people how fast they're going, but apparently they're not paying much attention. So I'm hoping the chief can take note and maybe put some more enforcement in that area. That's what I was asked to do. So And lastly, the transit buses, Liz has already gone, but I think they look fantastic. So, and I have heard nothing but positive things since we've taken over that service. So good for Liz, good for the city, and good for those folks that put in the work on it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilman Kathy.
First of all, it looks like starting next week, they will be starting on the construction of the LDS temple on Outer Drive. So that's a construction project that will be starting. I also attended the services yesterday, and I wanted to commend Chief McFeeters for his comments about the repairs of armor. I think a lot of people forget about the internal armor that the first responders have to deal with, and not only the police, but the fire and our EMS people as well. The mental toll that seeing the types of things that they see just it's a mental toll, and that toll cannot be, as was explained yesterday, cannot be repaired as easily as going out and buying a new bulletproof vest or external armor. And I thought those were very appropriate comments, and that people need to fully understand that for our first responders and also for our military personnel that have been into combat. Those are very difficult situations, and we all need to respect the mental and personal sacrifices they do sacrifice. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Quest.
Not much from me tonight, but I just want to agree wholeheartedly with all of your comments, Councilman. It was a beautiful service and full of joy, even in such a tremendously sad occasion. So I was glad to see the amount of people there and showing their support and love. So that's all.
Councilmember Pollock.
Thank you. I would echo those sentiments and also those about traffic on 12th and 13th. I'm getting the same emails. I know that's been a persistent problem area. I don't know what the solution is, but I think that there's some legitimate safety concerns. I see a wreck there. I live down in that area. I see a wreck frequently at the intersections, and they're usually clearly high-speed collisions because they're pretty significant wrecks for considering it's just in town driving around. So yeah, I think that would be all I have tonight.
Councilwoman Imbritz.
I guess I just am appreciative of the service and stuff, and I did have something that privately I want to talk to the chief on later on and reach out to him for some couple of ideas. It was a well-received service, although it was very sad and stuff. And I also am very curious how cars just flip over in the middle of the street. And it seems to occur a lot, so I was hoping maybe the chief could inform us what is actually the cause of cars just flipping over. So it's...
You get sleepy?
That's it. Do you know?
Bombs.
Drivers.
Tired?
Sleepy.
Councilman Johnson.
I was also at the service, and I echo everyone's sentiment. It was a very heart-wrenching but beautiful service, and I also, the chief's words actually struck with me as well. As being in former law enforcement military who's had those kinds of issues come up personally, so that was a really good analogy, and I appreciate your words, Chief.
Councilman Gamera.
Well, I don't mean to be too repetitive, but yeah, I also wanted to concur with everyone else. Thank you to Chief McFeeters, Deputy Chief Cheney, and everyone else who spoke yesterday at Lieutenant Dundas's funeral. I also want to thank the community for showing up. It was a powerful display of solidarity from our citizens to pay respect to a man who had committed his life to serving, protecting, and enriching the lives of the people around him. I see a lot of idolization these days of people I don't believe are good role models or strong leaders, and this has worried me about the direction of our country and the, just the future in general. But people like Lieutenant Danny Dundas are the type of people we should be celebrating and striving to be, and so I was glad to see such a strong showing from the community to support him, his family, and his friends, and of course the Casper Police Department. I also wanted to thank Councilwoman Pollack, Tyler Sesser at Art 321, and everyone else who helped organize the Engage Summit this past weekend. I went, and there was lots of interesting people to meet and sessions to attend. And so if you missed it this year, I would encourage you to stay tuned and try to catch it next year. That's all I have. Thanks.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
I'm not going to comment, but I'm going to pass it over to the mayor, who certainly served with our police department for 20-some years. So I'm going to give him the final word on that. So.
Thank you. Before I get into that, the LDS Church the temple is this weekend. They're doing a groundbreaking ceremony, so there should be a invite coming out to everybody for that. But I believe it's on Saturday is when that'll happen. I asked Carter to just put out to have everybody come, and I appreciate everybody from council being there, and I know you would have been there anyways, but I just appreciate everybody showing to the funeral yesterday, and it's situations like these, and when you have a department right now that is just torn up because an icon, and I'll call him that, an icon within the department is no longer with them, and they're lost. They are lost, but they'll get back. They'll come back, and in just like Sean, in doing this as long as I did, there are things in life that these officers will see and can never unsee again. And it doesn't have to be a traumatic incident that they go through that is that one thing that is just the catalyst. It could be something simple that just drives them over the edge. So anyways, I think we do great by our first responders, but I always think we can do a lot better. And I know that we've had some discussions, a couple council members have had some discussions on some things we can do to make things better and strive to do good things for them. And so I don't want this to, Danny's death it has hurt all of us, but I think that something very good can come out of this, especially for our first responders. So we'll see where the future takes us. I know right now some of the thoughts we have are just kind of thoughts on paper right now, but it's definitely, as far as I'm concerned, we're gonna make something of this, and it's gonna be positive. So again, I appreciate it, everything that was done, in the service itself, and good man lost, but will never be forgotten. So. Next meetings of the City Council will be a work session to be held at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, October 12th, 2021 in the council chambers, and a regular council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, October 19th, 2021 in the council chambers. The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, second by Councilman Gamroth. Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
Thank you.